I want the Bullet to like me. I like the Bullet. I've also never met her. And in the role that I have now, if I was to meet her, it would be because she got brought to set where I was working. And when I'm in that suit and I'm holding that microphone, I'm putting the athletes over, period. Over here, I'll be a little looser. We'll talk about some different stuff, but I'm putting them over, period. So if I was to meet her and she was to come to set for a post-fight interview, I would like if she was pleasant and thought I was pleasant. I would like that. But I find myself almost unanimously, for the better part of 7 years, giving teachings to her as opposed to giving congratulations to her. Now, I would like to buy myself into this club, right? I want to buy myself to tell you that I'm like that too, which is why it's okay that I pointed out. I had a fight. A very meaningful match in my career that nobody knows about. I got no credit for it. And I fought a gentleman named Paulo Filho. Paulo Filho was undefeated. He was the WEC world champion, but he was also in the rankings. In the universal rankings, number 1. At that time, in fact, Anderson Silva was number 2. And something about that is those two were workout partners. They were also both managed by Ed Soros. So when you would talk to Apollo and you would talk to Anderson and you would talk to Ed Soros, they weren't all like covering for one another to be nice. They all said that Apollo was ahead of him at that point. I remember Dan Henderson, who I really looked up to, was number 9. Just for reference, Jeremy Horn, who nobody had beaten in like 24 straight fights, was number 4. It was an interesting ranking. So this guy's number 1. I'm not ranked. So to beat him, which, by the way, now you get a championship opportunity, it was really exciting for me. My family flew out for it. It was televised. I believe it played on a Wednesday night at that time. And I believe it was a network that I don't think exists anymore, something called Fuel TV, but it was a big deal for me. And that fight was so unpleasant to watch that the UFC had just bought this organization that we competed. It was called the WEC. And so now they're rolling contracts over. They're gonna close down under the letters WEC and just do those very fights in the octagon. They did not bring Paulo Filho. That fight was so unpleasant for them that they did not bring the guy who was the champion and number 1. Now, they did bring me, but not without telling me. Like, they didn't just bring me and it rolls over. I'm sure he could figure this out. I don't know. People are booing and he'll know. No. They brought me in the back and let me know. We would not be bringing you. We just don't know how to tell that story to the audience because you won. This is your pass. This cannot happen again. Now, I take the time to tell you that because there was a learning moment there. I did not like that and it embarrassed me. And I also didn't understand it. The highest thing I had ever done was to come from college wrestling. The crowd would not boo you. They just simply wouldn't. On the rare occasions that crowds do boo in wrestling, it's actually because they're really engaged. I mean, it's a really positive energy boo. It's not like a boo anywhere else. I can't relate. You go out there, you find whatever strategy you can, you get your hand raised. You get told good job for that. I'm getting the opposite. So it was really a time of reflection. It was really a time, hey, what's going on here? What am I missing? I won. This guy was ranked number 1, and he was 16 and we're on television. I won. And I needed some time. I needed some time to process and understand that there is a business. And that whole television thing you talk about, to stay on television, there's something known as ratings, where people need to tune in. Might sound simple to you guys. I did not know. I just did not understand it at that time. So this was my wake-up call. Now, what can I do about it? How am I going to do anything about it? That's conversation for another day. But at some point, like anything, right, the cold water's got to be splashed in your face, and you got to see it. So I see the bullet. And the bullet, I don't know of anyone. I don't know that this is a stat. I can't give you this as an official stat. I just don't know of anyone that's had more title fights than her. It is a very big deal what she did Saturday because it moves her into a rare club. There's been guys from the beginning of time trying to cheat this club. And that club is, how many time world champion are you? When you're putting out programs and posters, and Bruce Buffer's announced it before fights, and the way they're going to read it to the audience when they induct you into the Hall of Fame, like your actual number, for you to be a 2-time world champion, you've had to have lost it. So now you get a guy, right? You'll get a guy that's a straight-up killer that nobody could beat. He's done more than anybody, sold more tickets, done more pay-per-views. He's a bigger star than all of them, but he's a 1-time world champion. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like that you're going to be a 3-timer and he's a 1-timer when he's never lost. So then he just starts talking about each of his defenses, and then it becomes a championship. If you defended about 5 times, you're a 5-time world champion, which is simply not true. Those are amateur rules. In the Olympic Games, if you win it and then you come back and win it again, you're 2-time. Those are amateur rules. The professional sports don't work that way. So I'm telling you this because Valentina's resume really got a lot better Saturday. This is a big deal. For an older athlete who loses their position, they're not getting that position back. Now, on the one-offs, such as Valentina, where they do, they had to show a real humility. And they had to go back and they needed to learn new things. She did that. So she's demonstrated her ability to learn from her mistakes and to make adjustments. She has people, her coaches, her trainers, I believe her own mother, I know her own sister, that can get to her that she can rely on. She can trust them. But they don't bring her Uncle Chael. She has shown an ability to demonstrate to people to look back, right? Just like I had to do with Paulo Filho. I had to look back and go, oh my God, okay, I got to look at this differently. She showed an ability to do that physically. But I don't know of anyone that's ever had as many world title fights as her. Now, she is the leader. This one I can tell you is an absolute stack. There has never been somebody to have more world title fights in non-main events. There has never been a world champion to have the longevity in non-main events than her. As a matter of fact, physically, she made adjustments from the last time with Grasso, but that's not the only thing that was different in this fight. This fight 1 year ago against the same lady for the same prize was a main event. It coming down the card. Well, I don't tease it for that. It was the right move. It should not have been the main event. What I'm speaking to is now you have the evidence. And just to keep bringing myself back into this, but I'm trying to say it to Leighton, I understand. I come from a good place with this. I'm sharing my own embarrassment and my own experience. But had Joe Silva and Scott Adams and Reed Harris not pulled me into that room and informed me of these things, I might not have ever got there. I had what I wanted and what I set out to do, which was a win over a guy ranked in front of me. That was the entire plan and strategy. So at some point, right, someone's got to grab you. And moving down the card has got to be one of those wake-up calls. And the fight is going to be what the fight is. And there are times you've got to use strategies. I'm going to give you a guy right now, Stephen Thompson. If you're one of the extremely rare humans walking this earth that is going to get the jump on Wonder Boy, I can tell you right now, there's a problem with engaging, right? There's some guys that if you're going to win, boy, there's things that you got to do to slow down the action. And with Valentina, I get that. I fully understand. And those things are out of your control to a degree. I fully understand. But you now have another chance. And the chance is that microphone. And if you speak 7 languages, I told you, I don't know of a mixed martial arts with more success than her. I don't know of anybody that speaks more languages than her. But to be able to speak 7 languages and not relay a message to anyone in any corner of the world, It's a very bizarre thing. If you don't have a name coming out of your mouth, if you are a champion and you win and Joe Rogan is interviewing you and you don't have somebody else's name coming out of your mouth, your other option in that moment is to retire. Anything short of that and you will have blown the spot, and you will not find an example through history of using other people. There is no example in history where that post-fight interview has been interesting and meaningful. You either used somebody else's name, and by the way, maybe you didn't call him out, maybe you didn't tease him or give him a hard time, maybe you said something really nice about him, or maybe you said they don't deserve it, I'm not going to fight him, but you would have said somebody else's name. There is now another person as part of this story. Or you retire. She said two names, Hunter Campbell and Dana White, neither of which are licensed to fight within her weight class or division. It was, in any of the 7 languages she speaks, a complete miss.